Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Considering how few people actually use their turn signals, they've been popping up a lot in the news. In fact, a video I did about a week ago about turn signals was one of the best performing videos I've had on this channel all year. And I never would have imagined that. But now we have a situation where they're talking about requiring turn signal usage in a roundabout. Now, not so long ago, I did another video about how a state said you do not have to use your turn signal in a roundabout. And that was because of the confusion over the law on turn signals, which had been passed before roundabouts existed in that state. So generally speaking, you're driving along and you are going to turn. You're going to turn in your car. Let's say you're coming to an intersection. You're going to come to the intersection, slow down, and turn right. As you approach the intersection, you turn on your turn signal to indicate to those behind you and those in front of you that you are in fact going to turn to the right. So you get the corner and you turn. You use a turn signal. Well, the way a lot of laws are written in a lot of states, it says you got to use a turn signal if you're turning or if you are changing lanes. If you're simply changing lanes. So you're in the right lane and you want to get into the left lane or vice versa. Before you do the lane change, you turn your turn signal on to indicate your intention to do so. Then you move over and you turn your turn signal off. The turn signal usage, though, confused a lot of people, and a lot of people were not using them when they simply changed lanes. So the question then was, if you drive up to a roundabout, let's assume there's no one else on the road, no one else in sight, okay? And you're going to turn left, in essence, at the roundabout intersection. So you drive up, you enter the circle, and you go roundabout 3/4, and then you exit the roundabout. Did you need to put your turn signal on to indicate the right turn that you made when you entered the roundabout? And did you need to put your right turn signal on again to indicate your exit from the roundabout? And some laws said that you had to have your turn signal on for a certain period of time before you made the turn or the lane change. So arguably, as you approach the roundabout, you'd have to turn your turn signal on to indicate the right-hand turn, even though it's the only way you can turn. And so when you're entering a situation where you can only go one way, a lot of people go, why would I indicate I'm going to do something obvious I'm going to do? But so the law would probably require you to use a turn signal. Then once you're in the roundabout, you're not going to exit till over here. You're going to pass two other potential exits. And in many states, they say that there's a certain number of feet before you exit or turn that you must turn your turn signal on to indicate. And if you measure that back, that might actually put you behind at least one and possibly two of the other exits. So it became mathematically impossible to follow the turn signal law while in a roundabout, if in fact is required in a roundabout. So there have been some states now that have said you do not need to use your turn signal in a roundabout. The presumption is as you enter it, we know you're going to turn right. And you'll exit it when you get your chance, but you can't turn your turn signal on far enough back to make it worthwhile. And if you turn it on as far back as required by law, it might confuse people who will see you coming past their entrance and assume you're exiting when you're not. But so that was the confusion. Well, just to make it more confusing, Gregory sent me a note. So Steve, check out the reporting from King. Bill would require turn signals to exit roundabouts. Somebody actually woke up one day and said, you know something, I think it's confusing a lot of people how roundabouts actually work. Maybe it would be less confusing if we required people to use their turn signals in the roundabouts. Drew Mickelson wrote this. Traffic engineers will tell you that roundabout intersections improve safety and the flow of traffic, but maneuvering through them confuses a lot of people. I like roundabouts. I do. But what I can't stand is the people who get to a roundabout and stop when there's nobody in it. They stop and there's a yield sign. You don't stop for a yield sign if there's no reason to yield. I've seen cars stacked up because somebody stopped, like they're waiting for the yield sign to change. Most of the people who are on the road today learned how to drive before there were roundabouts, says an Olympic driving school instructor. So this driving school instructor says that most people on the road today learned how to drive before there were roundabouts. And mathematically, he might be right. He teaches his students to use their right turn signals before exiting a traffic circle, signaling to drivers about to enter that it's safe to do so. Well, does he tell them to signal as they enter it? Because they are turning right. That makes sense, he said. So he contacted his rep about creating a law. And you know, If you ask most people, do we have too many laws or too few laws? Let's just assume that the number of laws on the books is not perfect. There's either too many or too few. What do you think it is? And yet, some people will call their legislator and say, I want another law. So his rep is now sponsoring a bill that would require the use of turn signals when exiting roundabouts. Now, here's the thing, and this might be part of the confusion. Where I live, the nearest roundabouts to me are quite small, very small. And I've seen some roundabouts that are huge, okay? And so when you enter a really small roundabout and you're going to go that way, you literally have to just, flip your turn signal on immediately. But as you flip it on immediately, you're exiting at the moment you're flipping it on. And again, you don't want to flip it on before you pass the last exit from the one you're going to use. So let's say you're entering a roundabout, and we're going to call the exits of the roundabout 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're entering on 4. Your first opportunity to exit is 1. Your second opportunity to exit is at 2. And your third is at 3, okay? And you're going to exit at 1. So you pull in, turn right, and immediately turn on your turn signal, and boom, you're gone. However, if you're going to exit at 2, you can't turn it on before you pass 1. So you get in, you go past 1, immediately turn it on and exit. And you ask, okay, who are you helping? Well, theoretically, you're helping somebody who is waiting at the one that you're exiting on. And yet, the roundabouts are so small that they're going to see you turning just as fast as they see you turn the turn signal on. But this man testified in favor of the bill before the House Transportation Committee recently. No matter what happens with legislation, of course, roundabouts are here to stay. So that bill is working its way through Capitol Hill. And I'm not quite sure if the people of Washington State have a Capitol Hill, but you know what I'm talking about. So we'll see what happens there. But considering the fact that turn signals are already mandated by law and so many people misuse them, and I mentioned before that there's a T stop near where I live, and I often go through this intersection where I am coming up the trunk of the T, and I have to come to a complete stop, and the cross traffic at the top of the T does not stop. And I'm going to go left, almost always going left. And people come from this direction, do not use their turn signals. And as they approach, they slow down and they go this way. And if they have their turn signal on and they're slowing down, I will pull out and go that way. But 9 times out of 10, somebody just cruises along and turns left. So asking people to use their turn signals, we'll see how well that works out. But here's the thing. According to the Washington State Department of Transportation, when compared to traditional intersections, roundabouts have fewer pedestrian crashes, injuries, or fatal collisions. The bill targeting roundabouts is not the only traffic-related legislation being discussed by lawmakers in Olympia. There's a proposal to lower the blood alcohol limit for drivers from 0.08 to 0.05. I've talked about that specifically, and I'm working on getting a cop in here, so hang on. My goal in life, I'll get that to happen. Bills introduced in the State House and Senate would prohibit drivers from making a right turn at certain red lights. Certain red lights. The proposal identifies those certain red lights as intersections within 1,000 feet of schools, parks, transit centers, and hospitals. And I'm curious to know if right turn on red is legal at every single red light as it is right now, or don't they already have exceptions? Because every state that I can think of where I've been where right turn on red is legal, there are occasionally intersections where it goes no right turn on red. They just put up a sign saying you can't do it. And quite often, it's at intersections where there's a blind approach, and sometimes it's where there's heavy pedestrian traffic because they anticipate that a lot of people who are in a hurry to get someplace will approach the light, look that way, and go that way on red without catching the fact that there's pedestrians standing near a telephone pole here that are about to step into the crosswalk. So that's a problem. Finally, the Senate Committee on Transportation will consider a proposal that would put speed safety camera systems near highway work zones. Speed safety cameras. See, if you put the word safety in the title, it suddenly becomes a good thing. Traffic fatalities are near historic highs after a surge of dangerous driving during the coronavirus pandemic. After a record spike in 2021, the number of U.S. traffic deaths dipped slightly during the first 9 months of 2022, but pedestrian and cyclist deaths continue to rise. More than 40,000 people are killed in road crashes a year. According to a preliminary report from the Washington Traffic Safety Commission, 745 people were killed in crashes in 2022, highest number since 1990. 2021 was also a deadly year on Washington roads with 540 crashes that result in the deaths of more than 600 people. And they mentioned earlier that roundabouts are also very safe for pedestrians. And that's an interesting angle because right now I'm thinking of all the intersections where I know that are roundabouts that I travel often. And I've never seen pedestrians crossing the streets or the corners there because they're out a ways from places where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. And so that's what I'm curious about, is where there is an intersection, so to speak, of pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic using a roundabout. Because normally if I come to an intersection, I just got to cross one time to go over here, but I guess at a roundabout, I got to kind of walk up and walk around and cross over in this. And since these are yield intersections as opposed to red light, green light, I can see why there might be some confusion with respect to how pedestrians should behave or how the drivers of cars should behave therein, referring to the roundabout. So Gregory sent it to me. We'll see what happens. But while some states are saying you don't need to use your turn signal in a roundabout, Washington is thinking about passing a law saying that you are required to use your turn signals in a roundabout, and that's because a driving ed instructor woke up one morning and decided that it would be a good thing to have those King or King reports that Drew Mickelson wrote it. Gregory sent it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. You are allowed to be a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time.